Good evening and welcome to another installment of our virtual speaker series. My name is Myrna Maloney Flynn, and I have the honor of serving as the president of Massachusetts Citizens for Life. And tonight we have a very special guest joining us to talk about a very special endeavor that he has undertaken once again. We have Tom Harvey, who is basically a legend. Let's just cut right to the chase. He's a legend here in the state of Massachusetts when it comes to pro-life issues, particularly on the legal front, as he is an attorney and a good friend, of course, to all of us, and especially to those of us at Massachusetts Citizens for Life. Currently, Tom is serving as the chairman of the Alliance to Stop Taxpayer Funding of Abortion, and he has undertaken another attempt to collect enough of your signatures and signatures from citizens across the state so that we can become closer to finally ending the statewide funding that we as taxpayers pay for abortions across the Commonwealth. So tonight, what we're going to do is allow Tom to talk a little bit more about this signature gathering effort, and then he'll talk about how you can help, because really this is an all hands on deck initiative. The more of you who are involved, the more of you who invite others to be involved, that increases our chance to really make history once and for all. We will have a Q&A session after Tom concludes his remarks, and hopefully we'll wrap up within about 40 or 45 minutes, and you'll be well versed and informed and eager to go out and collect signatures for our behalf and on behalf of those who are without a voice. So, Tom, thank you for being here. Thank you for undertaking your effort once again. We're very grateful for all that you do. It is tireless work, I know, but I'll let you have the floor, and I'll come back in at the end to moderate a Q&A.
Thank you, Myrna, for that kind introduction. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. As Myrna said, I'm the chairman of the Mass Alliance to Stop Taxpayer-Funded Abortions, and we're currently undergoing another effort to amend the state constitution. I want to give you some background. So some years ago, I think maybe 2015, I did some research wondering how we can best make some progress in Massachusetts on the pro-life front. And my research indicated that back in 1981, it was a Supreme Judicial Court case, which was really judicial legislation. Activist judges ruled that abortion in Massachusetts is a fundamental right under the state constitution, that it's a broader right than it is under the U.S. Constitution. And this is despite the fact that the word abortion is not even in our Constitution, but they ruled nonetheless, and also that the taxpayer must fund Medicaid abortions. So that was in 1981. Ever since then, we've been paying for abortions in this state. Despite at the federal level, there was restrictions because of the Hyde Amendment, and more recently because of the Big Beautiful Bill. But that's at the federal level. At the state level, we're paying for abortions from our tax dollars. So in I think it was 2015, I sent around requests for various groups to see if they'd be interested in trying to amend the state constitution. I didn't get much of a response, so I tried to do it on my own, really, I think probably pretty naive at the point. Well, we needed to collect that year, I think it was like 64,000 signatures. We collected about 30,000. A lot of great volunteers, just not enough. In 2017, tried it again. This time, Renew Mass Coalition was involved, which is a great assistance. It no longer exists, but it was very helpful in 2017 and in 2019. But again, we came up short on the signatures. We got 60,000 those 2 years. But at that point, the number required to collect had gone up to, I think it was 80,000 one of those years. So the number required to collect is based on, this is from the state constitution, it's based on 3% of the number of voters in the previous election for governor. So one of those years there was a big turnout, and that's why the number went up to 80,000 and something. Anyway, to amend the state constitution is not an easy thing to do, and that's what we're trying to do. It's only a small step we're trying to make, but it's a necessary step. So we're trying to, the wording of the petition is, nothing in this constitution requires the public funding of abortion. So it's not going to immediately stop the public funding of abortion. It's just going to eliminate it if we succeed. It will eliminate it as a constitutional right. It's a small step, but a very necessary step. Because otherwise, even if the legislature should someday become pro-life, there's nothing they could do because it's a constitutional right. So we're trying to make it so that when the legislature is eventually pro-life, they can proceed and defund the abortion industry. It's, as I said, it's a four-step procedure. The first step is collecting these signatures. The second step, it goes to the state legislature. That is, if we get the required number of signatures, the required number is 74,574 certified signatures. So the second step after getting the signatures is to go to the state legislature in joint session. There are 200 legislators. We need to get 50 of them, 1/4 of them, to vote to advance it. The third step, it goes to the next elected legislature and again get 50 of them to vote to advance it. And the last step, we go on the ballot in the year 2028, and a majority would prevail on the issue. The reason this may succeed, even though Massachusetts is a deep blue state, the reason it may succeed is because we don't need the governor's signature on this. We don't need 1/2 the legislature, which most bills would require. So because it's only 1/4, and because we don't need the governor's signature, this may succeed politically. Okay, no guarantee that it will either. The legislature is pretty bad from our perspective, but there's a couple of things that this will serve a good purpose. One, it's educating people. It's amazing the number of people in this state that don't even know that their tax dollars are paying for abortion. Not only paying for abortion, but it's a constitutional right. Secondly, well, nothing will ever change unless we discuss an issue. So this is putting it up for discussion. Even if we don't get the signatures, we're making it an issue. And the status quo is simply not acceptable to us. Where abortion is widespread in this state, we're paying over $6 million per year of our tax dollars are going for abortion, and we just can't accept that the way it is now. So we've got to sort of stir the pot, make some action. As I mentioned, we need 74,574 signatures, and we actually need probably to collect about 100,000 signatures because so many are usually disqualified for various reasons. For example, you can't sign twice. Some signatures are illegible. The Secretary of State's office where they're eventually a file with, is extremely stringent on these sheets. So there was some case years ago that said it must be an exact duplicate of the original petition sheet. And the Secretary of State's office is really sort of taking that to the extreme. So any little mark up on the margin may disqualify a sheet. A coffee stain will definitely disqualify a sheet. A highlighting using a red pen or a green pen will disqualify a sheet. So we've got to avoid all these things. And for that reason, for those people that are collecting signatures, I am asking them to request copies from me, not to make their own copies. It's just a little dangerous. I've seen so many errors over the years on when people make their own copies of this petition, and just various mistakes. It's a two-sided copy, and that could prove complications for some people. For example, I've seen a front and a back sheet stapled together. That's invalid. I've seen the reverse side of the two-sided sheet upside down. That's invalid. If If the sheet's a little bit askew in the copy, that's invalid. So, I think they're looking for excuses to invalidate some of these sheets. So we've got to be very careful. That's why I always recommend I'll mail you the sheets or I'll deliver the sheets to you. The rules on the collecting of the sheets, it's on the website, which I'll get to later. But, just sort of warnings and, the best way to go about doing it. I'm asking for volunteers tonight. We really need, in the past, we haven't succeeded because we haven't had enough volunteers. We've had a lot, but just not enough. So if we can cover the whole state with volunteer signature gatherers, it'd be a long way toward achieving our goal. Now I'm going to take out the petition now and show you, should I go through it with you? Okay, so I think the petition may be up on your screen now. The first, I think the most important, once a person agrees to sign, you explain and you explain what it's all about, if necessary, and they're agreeable to sign. The first question you want to ask is, what town or city are you registered to vote in? And when they tell you, say, for example, Boston, you write down Boston at the bottom of the center of the page where it says city or town. And that is now a Boston sheet. Okay, so someone from Lexington can't sign that sheet. It'll be invalidated. So it's town by town, which makes it difficult because you can't just take a piece of paper and pass it around a room. You got to find out where they're registered to vote. So you'd immediately write that in at the bottom, and then have the person sign where under that column where it says signature. I usually recommend having them sign and then print their name next to it. Some signatures are really illegible, but technically they're supposed to sign it. So I would have sign and that's still within that same rectangle, sign and then print. And then on the right side, what your address is. You don't need to put in the ward or precinct on the far right. And you don't have to put in the town again because it's already going to be written at the bottom of the page. Okay, so that's sort of the key rules on collecting signatures. I don't think there's, and then it'll talk about at the top here, these 10, well, just above that, at the very top, it says summary. Okay, and it's the reading is this proposed constitutional amendment would permit the state to exclude abortion services from state-funded health care. That is not my language because I wouldn't use the term healthcare for abortion, but this was the language that the summary, so-called summary by the Attorney General's office. The language that I had submitted and will be, I believe will be on the state constitution should we prevail, is nothing in this constitution requires the public funding of abortion. And so the Attorney General took that language and made this summary. Underneath that are the original 10 signers, and we all had to, these 10 signers had to submit, sign the petition and submit certificates of voter registration to get the ball rolling. That was back in early August. And then it was submitted to the Attorney General's office. They had to review it to make sure it was comported with the state constitution, which it did, and then they certified it. They sent it, I had to go and pick it up, bring it to the Secretary of State's office, and the Secretary of State's office produces these petitions. Ideally, once you are collecting the signatures, your sheets, you bring that sheet for that particular town to your town clerk. And the town clerk will then certify it and give you a call. They'll give you a receipt. And then a few days later, they'll give you a call and say they're ready to be picked up. And then you pick them up and now they're certified. You can then mail them to me at the address on the front of the sheet, on the right-hand side in the middle, where it says Petition C, P.O. Box 345, Arlington, Mass. 02476. Now, in the course of collecting signatures, you're going to get some from some foreign town. Maybe you're in Worcester and you get a Boston sheet. So that we wouldn't expect you to go to Boston to file, your 1 or 2 signatures in Boston. You would then mail them to me without having had them certified, and I will make arrangements to have them certified. In addition, we will have what they call a swap, where people can bring their sheets or have someone give it to someone else to bring to a central location. either in the Worcester County or maybe down in the Brockton area, and these will be scheduled, where you can bring your sheets from distant towns and then make exchanges. So in other words, someone could say, hey, I'm from the Boston area. I can cover Boston and a couple of suburbs. Someone from you take my Worcester sheets, I'll take your Boston sheets, and someone else will take the Springfield area sheets, that type of thing, so that no one has to travel too far to get these things certified. The certification, the deadline for the certification is November 19, just like it says up on the top corner there. There's filing deadlines. So November 19, by 5:00 p.m. that day, they must be into the clerk's offices. And then subsequently to that, they have to be picked up from the clerk's offices and delivered to the Secretary of State's office by December 3. Sometimes the clerks don't have them ready until, maybe a couple of days before December 3, before the deadline. But and in that regard, I will need volunteers as far as what they call sweepers, people that can go around to the various clerks' offices and pick up the sheets after November 19. But at this point, what we really need are volunteer signature collectors. As I mentioned before, we've failed to get the number in the past, but we've come close. So just a little more to get over the top. There is a sign up genius. If you want to sign up, you can email me at tom@stoptaxpayerabortion.org, and I can give you the link for that sign up genius. Just basically saying, I'm going to try to collect this many signatures, just so that we have a general idea of how things are going. The website for stoptaxpayerabortion.org is www.stoptaxpayerabortion.org. And you can email me as well. I'm at tom@stoptaxpayerabortion.org. And I will, for example, let you know about when this swap is coming up. I guess as far as action to be taken, I need 3 things. One are prayers. I don't think there's any doubt that this is a spiritual battle. And to prevail in this, we certainly need the Lord's help. 2, volunteer, whether maybe you could cover your town or the churches in your town. In this regard, I'm asking you to take the initiative. There are opportunities out there that I may not see, but you see in your town. Say your town has a fair, or Arlington Day or something like that, and go and see if you can collect signatures. Wherever there's a crowd, it might be a good place to collect signatures. But there's also targeted audiences. So, for example, there were Charlie Kirk memorial events. Most of the people that attend those events are going to be willing to sign. And I have signs that if you're interested in being a signature gatherer, I have signs that are really good. I'll show you one right now. I'm not sure if you could see that, but they pretty much sell themselves. You don't have to convince people. At some of these events, another one was the Hope for Life conference in Boston last Saturday. We have these signs that people that just see that, and they're like-minded people, and they come up and sign the petition. So when I say take the initiative, I mean, if you see these opportunities, go to the events or notify me, and I'll try to make arrangements to have volunteers go to these events. I do have volunteers all over the state, some places more than others. But if you are willing to help, that would be just great. I think that's pretty much all I have, other than also we need donations, to succeed with this. There's a lot of postage costs, a lot of copying costs. And if we could cover those costs, that would go a long way to having this thing be a success. I think that's pretty much all I have at this point. Thank you for attending, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you so much, Tom. So just to review, for those who have joined, if they'd like to participate, what should they do to obtain the signature sheets?
Yeah, thank you. They can contact me by email is the best, tom@stoptaxpayerabortion.org, or they can go to the website and there's a button to volunteer, and it's www.stoptaxpayerabortion.org.
And so you'll send out
Yeah, at anybody's
shipments
request,
of 100 or so
I'm
for
sorry. Yeah, if they
volunteers
need
to take to
sheets,
their,
I'll mail them out to, that same day.
okay. And then on the volunteer side of things, say that I wanted to share them at my church and try to obtain signatures after church. What does a volunteer need to do to obtain permission? Because you're not really involved in that part of it, but what's the
Yeah,
best practice
good
there?
point, good question. Yeah, I think if you're going to do it at church, you obviously want to get permission from your pastor, and hopefully the pastor would sort of give a push to the congregation to sign this thing, and that would be both Catholic and Protestant churches. Um, like I mentioned before, but a targeted audience. Hopefully those congregations would be willing to sign for the most part.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. I'm reading the questions that we've got coming in. Okay, one question is where it says signature. You said the person should print name and sign it in the same spot.
Well, I think if they could, within that rectangle, there's usually room to sign it and then print in the name next to it. So that's the way a lot of sort of the professionals recommend it to be done. So that's what I would recommend too. If the signature is clearly legible, then there's probably no need to print it. But there are a lot of signatures that aren't legible, and we want to make sure it's covered.
And we're seeing another. Yeah. And then once a volunteer has collected signatures, they should return them in a regular postal
Yeah, they
mail
could either
to you.
yes, they could either bring it to, say they're in Watertown. They could bring those as a Watertown sheet, bring that sheet to the town clerk to get them certified. But if they can't do that for whatever reason, they can just mail them to me. And that's at that address up there on the middle right there, where it says Petition C, P.O. Box 345, Arlington, Mass. 02476. And I will make sure that someone, some volunteer, can get those things filed with the clerk's office in that particular town.
Okay. And then the instructions that we're talking about, some people I know are probably taking notes, but does your website have sort of a step-by-step how-to? I mean, this isn't that complicated, but it's
Yeah,
new for a lot of us. So,
there are on the website. I just want to have STFA, which is Stop Taxpayer-Funded Abortion, rules for collecting signatures. And it sort of goes through the whole list. I could actually sort of run through it right now for the most part. Okay. Well, it's pretty long, but anyway, no stray marks, writing or highlighting anywhere on the petition sheet. Be truthful about the petition at all times. Signatures must be collected from only one town per sheet. We've already discussed that. Thus registered voters from different towns cannot sign the same sheet. If someone from the wrong town signs, do not cross off the name. The signature is no good, but does not invalidate that sheet. Signatures must be in blue or black ink, no red or green ink. Signatures must not leak through to the other side. So usually it's best for the volunteer to supply the pen rather than someone using their own pen. Some of these, like a flare pen may leak through. There's no need to print in the ward or precinct over on the far right. There's no need to fill the entire sheet. You could have only one or two signatures. And I actually think it's probably best practice just to get the front of the sheet signed up and then get a new sheet, even if it's the same town, because once you get a lot of signatures, you just want to ensure that nothing goes wrong. You don't want someone testing their pen on the sheet now, and there goes the whole sheet, according to the Secretary of State's office. And then copying, as I mentioned before, is kind of dangerous just because of all the possibilities of a mix-up with a two-sided sheet. So, in the past, I've gotten sometimes just they send me just the front side of a sheet. Well, that's not going to be any good. And you hate people going through all the work to collect signatures and find out that it's invalidated. And I can remember one year up in Lowell, actually, a man out there collecting signatures at some event, doing a great job, except that he was drinking coffee at the same time, and every single sheet he had a coffee stain on it. And like, he just wasted a couple of hours, unfortunately. But you hate to see that. So I'm always like kind of paranoid. I don't have food anywhere near any of these sheets just because of the danger. So, and the best place to collect signatures, I think, is usually supermarkets or churches. And at least in Eastern Mass, the market baskets are really good. They seem to be, sort of that clientele is better than others for the most part. And then again, with the churches, you want to get the okay of the pastor if possible. And I have sort of sample bulletin announcements or pulpit announcements if need be, and you could tweak those to make them suitable to your particular situation.
And then also the boards that you held up a few minutes ago
Yes.
with the picture of the baby on it. We can receive those from you as well?
Yes, absolutely. I have
Okay.
drivers that can drive around and deliver those if the person can't come to me in Arlington.
Okay. And then a couple of questions, just again, logistically on the forms themselves. When they are mailed back to you, should they be certified mail or is regular postal mail?
Regular mail is fine.
Okay. And then also, can they be folded or should they be kept?
Yes, they can be folded.
Okay.
Good question.
Great. Good questions. Let's see here. And then perhaps we can put in the chat your email address again, if you can repeat that, Tom, and then
Sure.
also the website that we should be sending everybody to.
Yes, the website is www.stoptaxpayerabortion.org. And the email is tom@stoptaxpayerabortion.org.
Okay. And we are going to be sending out a follow-up email. There's the web address. Thank you, Juan. And we'll include in that follow-up email your email address and then this web URL for people to visit as well. And you mentioned earlier, Tom, that you need donations as part of this effort. A couple questions from people, donations to what? But it's to your organization, right?
Yeah, to be made out to Mass Alliance to Stop Taxpayer-Funded Abortions, or STFA, Stop Taxpayer Funding Abortion. And they can be mailed to that address, where the petition C on the screen there, petition C, PO Box 345, Arlington.
Good. One question here from a Boston resident. Is a Boston sheet applicable for all neighborhoods in Boston?
Yes. So if you put down Jamaica Plain, it's still a Boston sheet. If you put down Brighton, it's still a Boston sheet. So you can put down either Brighton or Boston. As long as that gets filed with the city clerk of Boston, you're okay.
Great. And then also there's a question about the amendment that ultimately we're working toward.
Yes.
Can you just summarize what that would say?
Yeah. So the wording would be, nothing in this Constitution requires the public funding of abortion. And as I mentioned before, so it's not going to stop the public funding of abortion, but it is going to eliminate it as a constitutional right. And that is a necessary step, because without that, the legislature, if it should ever become pro-life, would be handcuffed. So we want to remove those handcuffs.
Great. Very good. Okay. I have run through all the questions that have come in, a lot of good questions. I'll take one more minute if anyone has any other final questions for Tom right now. But again, we will be sending out a follow-up email that will include a recording. So if you had friends or family who wanted to join tonight, you can share the recording with them. We'll provide Tom's email and the website. And then the deadline. You mentioned the deadline, but let's restate that
Yes.
again because it's
Once
coming
again,
up.
the deadline for submitting these to the clerk's offices is November 19. But I mean, if I should get them on November 19 in the mail, that's going to be a real scramble. So we want to act early if possible.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. I think we've hit all the questions. And yes,
Great. Well, thank
very
you.
chatty group
Thank you
tonight.
everyone for attending. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you again. This is a wonderful effort. And as you said before we joined tonight, just keeping this in front of people, just keeping this issue in front of our citizens across the state is very critical. And to get people engaged and, just to let people know that it doesn't take a lot on anyone's part to achieve really good things. So thank you again for all of your efforts, Tom. And we will look forward to some good news, hopefully. When would you find out the results, actually?
Mid-December. Yeah, at least in
Okay.
past experience. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we will be praying for your efforts. Thank you again. And thank you to all of you who have joined us tonight. Yes. Have a good evening, and we'll see you again very soon. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.